This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us be glad and rejoice with it. I was glad when they said to me, let us go into the house of the Lord, for he has shown me what is good. What does the Lord require of thee but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God? Good morning. Good morning. We welcome you this morning to the Engine Rankin World Chapel here in Hampton Auditorium. We pray God's blessings upon you as we seek to worship our God in spirit and in truth. We're going to ask Ms. Hazel Robinson, a member of the Friends of the Chapel, and our alumni affairs person to come to light our unity candle. Let us stand for our call to worship. God, you created the heavens, stars scattered with beauty, and the earth teeming with life. You made us able to dream and plan, create and build out of the richness of the earth. Together, Lord of all, to thee we raise the hymn of grateful praise. Amen. Please remain standing for our hymn of praise. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Hallelujah. True scripture reading can be found in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verses 4 through 9. It is also printed in your bulletins. Yet now take courage, O Zerubbabel, says the Lord. Take courage, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Take courage, all you people of the land, says the Lord. Work, for I am with you, says the Lord of hosts, according to the promise I made you when you came up out of Egypt. My spirit abides among you. Do not fear. For thus says the Lord of hosts, once again in a little while, I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. I will shake all the nations, so that the treasure of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with splendor, says the Lord of hosts. The latter splendor of this house shall be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts. And in this place I will give prosperity, says the Lord of hosts. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Good morning. Second Thessalonians, chosen for salvation. But we must always give thanks to God for you, brothers and sisters beloved by the Lord, because God chose you as the first fruits for salvation through sanctification by the Spirit and through belief in the truth. For this purpose, he called you through our proclamation of the good news so that you may obtain the glory of the Lord Jesus Christ. So then, brothers and sisters, stand firm and hold fast to the traditions that you were taught by us, either by word of mouth or by our letter. Now may our Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father, who loved us and through grace gave us eternal comfort and good hope, comfort your hearts and strengthen them in every good work and word. This is the word of God for the people of God.
We will be blessed now to experience the Howard University Showtime Marching Band under the direction of Kelvin W. Washington. I say we can do better than that now.
this time, if your organization has a call to chapel, we would ask that you would please join us at this part of the pulpit to prepare for your announcement, as well if you are one of our student leaders participating in the celebration of Congressman Elijah Cummings. We would also ask that you join us to prepare for that as well. We would like to note in this morning's bulletin on the cover, you'll have an opportunity to follow us on social media using the handle @HowardUChapel, both on Twitter and Instagram. So even now, as we're worshiping together, singing songs of Zion, we would ask that you would please follow us there on social media. And while we're in this service, also feel free to pull out your phones and use the hashtag #SundaysAreForChapel. We're grateful for all of the folks who are watching us via our live stream and want to thank Spotlight, the Student Network, for allowing us to stream via our YouTube channel. And we also welcome those who can't join us here physically on Sunday mornings to check us out on YouTube as we celebrate and worship together there. Please also note this morning in the bulletin that we are celebrating Native American Heritage Month. For more information on Native American Heritage Month and how you can support, please visit the National Congress of American Indians. There's information there for you in the bulletin. We invite those who are able to join us for a reception on the lower level following today's service in the lower level of Crampton. We also would like to note that for Thanksgiving, we have the Thanksgiving baskets that will be given to students here on behalf of the Office of the Dean of the Chapel, the Office of the Vice President of Student Affairs, as well as Sodexo. And there's a link located on our Instagram page as well as our Twitter page. And also ask that you would volunteer for Food to Feed, a great program sponsored by WHUR, opportunities to volunteer for our faculty, our students, and staff members of the university, and all those who in the greater Howard community would like to serve as well. We have now coming the president of our chapel assistants, Mr. Glenn Vox, who will lead us in our calls to chapel. Let's give God thanks for him now as he comes.
Good morning, chapel family. Our first call to chapel this morning will come from the College of Arts and Sciences Student Council.
Good morning, everyone. We would like to invite you to our Co-Ops Week. On Tuesday, we will begin with the Midnight Brunch in Blackburn Restaurant from 10:30 to 12:30. On Wednesday, we will have an Undecided Fair in West Towers, P52, from 6 to 8 p.m. On Thursday, we will have a Battle of the Orgs in Crampton Auditorium from 7 to 9.
And then on Friday, we will have a masquerade ball from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. in the Oddfellows building. And then on Saturday, we will have the College of Arts and Sciences Student Council Day of Service at 9 a.m. And then please follow us on our social media at Co-Op Student Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next call to chapel this morning comes from the Freshman Leadership Academy.
Good morning, chapel family. My name is Kayla McQuarters, and I am proud to serve as a co-director for this year's 10th class of the Freshman Leadership Academy. I have the privilege of leading and overseeing the leadership development of 51 bright students throughout their freshman year. I wanted to recognize them today, so would the members of the 10th class of FLA and any past members of the Freshman Leadership Academy please stand. We've had an amazing first semester full of growth thus far, and I just want to encourage you all to keep up your energy and your hard work throughout the rest of the semester and the year. Continue to look for new things to learn, continue to look for new ways to serve, but most importantly, continue to be authentically you in your leadership, because in doing this, you give people watching the permission to do the same. I would like to give a quick shout out as well to my advisor and the one who is always working behind the scenes to make sure that FLA has everything that we need, Dr. Paris Carter. And lastly, I would just like to say thank you to Reverend Duffy and the Office of the Dean of the Chapel for your ongoing support of FLA. Thank you.
Our next call to chapel this morning comes from the Howard University Alumni Club of Greater Washington, D.C.
Good morning, chapel family. Good morning, President Frederick and Dean Richardson. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Hazel Robinson, President of Howard University Alumni Club of Greater Washington, D.C. and I'm a proud veteran of the U.S. Army and the global war on terrorism. I would like all veterans to please stand. If you are here, please stand. We want to thank you for your service, sacrifice, and leadership, and we honor you this weekend. And to the family of Congressman Elijah Eugene Cummings, on behalf of Nadia Pinto and the Howard University Alumni Association, we give you our deep condolences. Congressman Cummings was one of us. He represented us well in Howard University. Thank you. The Greater Washington, D.C. Club will close out this semester with our general body meeting on Monday, November 18th, 7 o'clock p.m. at Odds Fellow Building. We'll be serving a succulent and delicious Thanksgiving meal, and we'll hear from our own, from the Dean's office here at Howard University. Also, we hope to hear from the Howard University Community Choir. You are all invited for a great meal and meeting. Will all the alumni please stand? Give yourselves a hand. Thank you.
Next, please welcome members of the steering committee of Howard University Alternative Spring Break.
Good morning, Chapel family. On behalf of Howard University Alternative Spring Break, we would like to welcome our speaker, President Frederick, thank you, and his family. We would also like to thank everyone who participated in our week of events leading up to our application release party.
The HU Alternative Spring Break 2020 Early Decision and Team Leader applications are now open. Team Leader applications are due Sunday, November 24th, and Early Decision applications are due Sunday, December 1st. Please visit any of our social media platforms at HUASB to find the application. For any questions or concerns, please contact our email at hualternativespringbreak@gmail.com. Will all steering committee members and past participants please stand? Thank you.
Our next call to chapel this morning comes from the Howard University Angel Tree Project.
Good morning. I serve as one of the two community service co-chairs for chapel assistants under the office of the chapel. And I would first like to start by saying thank you to all those who contributed, whether that be you adopting angels or giving monetary donations. We are still accepting donations in the lobby and also on the lower level of Crampton after service. Also, if you'd like to adopt an angel, it will be made available to you in the lobby and also downstairs in the lower level of Crampton. Thank you.
Our next call is from the ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Phi Chapter.
The ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Phi Chapter, will be celebrating 97 years of Founders Day this week, with an interactive week of events tailored to highlighting the importance of self-care amongst African American women. Join us for a week of royalty, beginning tomorrow with Sigma service at the Fisher House with the members of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated Alpha Chapter. Follow us on social media for all the additional details at Howard SG Rose on Instagram and Twitter. Would the ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated please stand to be recognized? Thank you.
Next, please welcome the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Chapter.
On behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Alpha Chapter, I would like to welcome Dr. Wayne Frederick to the chapel and thank him for speaking this morning. We appreciate all of the hard work you do for students, as we student organizations will strive to continue to make Howard the beautiful institution it is. Thank you.
Our final call to chapel this morning comes from the Interfaith Collegiate Court.
to invite your high school students to a wonderful free interfaith weekend, November 15th through the 17th at Howard University. Throughout this weekend, they will have the opportunity to deepen their own faiths, learn about others, tour the campus, learn best practices for applying to college, and share in a beautiful experience with friends they can make for a lifetime. For more information and to sign up, see us in the lobby at the end of service. Thank you.
Thank you to all organizations and community members that had a call to chapel this morning. And now for our quote of the week. It is distressing to me that we live in an age in which we still must fight to protect our civil rights as Americans, in which a hate crime perpetrated against someone based on their sexual orientation can go unpunished, and in which discrimination is being written into our laws. And that is by Representative John Conyers. Thank you and have a great week.
O God, make clean our hearts within us.
And take not thy Holy Spirit from us.
O Lamb of God, that taketh away the sins of the world.
Grant us thy peace.
Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. See if there's anything in me that is getting in the way of what is for me. Then lead me to a place where I may become the person you had in mind when you created me. Search us, O God. Search even our hidden places. Come to where we hide our fears, come to where we hurt. Come now with your healing touch so that we can hope again, believe in ourselves again. Come so we will no longer allow any failure, person, or situation to steal from us our confidence or to make us feel small. Come, oh God. Come so that we can forgive ourselves. Come so that we can forgive. Come and help us to let go and to move on with our lives. Come so that we can see and thank you for the blessings that are already in our lives. Search us this morning. Search us now so that we can know what's in our hearts. To know what our hearts are longing for. Too often, oh God, we are uncertain of what we want. So we give to you now our confused thoughts. We give you our uncertain desires and our ambivalence, and we open up our hearts and minds for you to guide us. In this moment, Lord, we're asking for strength. We're asking for courage. We're asking for wisdom to choose and to see and to pursue what is true and good for us. And we ask for the faith to trust you, to trust ourselves, and to believe that all will be well. In this moment, oh God, help us to believe that all things are possible, that our healing, a new way to live our lives are possible. Help us to understand, oh God, that with you, all things are possible. This morning we pray not only for ourselves, but we pray for the people in our lives who need more than we can provide. We place them in your care. We place in your care all who need healing. We place before you our poor, all who are in prison, all who grieve, and all who know the pain of loneliness. And then, oh Lord, we give to you this nation, our very sick nation. Free her from her hatred and bitterness. Free her from all that is a contradiction of all that you desire for her. Free her from those who want to take us back to a way of life that is against life. Free her from those who do these things in your name. And then, oh God, fill each and every one of us with compassion. Let it be like a fire that's shut up in our bones, making us unable to be silent and to tolerate the hurt, the pain, and the injustice being inflicted upon all who you love, especially our children. Now hold us. Hold us in your love until we learn how to love. Now, Dr. I still do some quietness. Until all our striving cease. Take from our souls the strain and the stress, and let our ordered lives confess the beauty of thy peace. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Great is your mercy towards me, your loving kindness towards me, your tender mercies I see day after day, forever faithful towards me, and you're always providing for me. Great is your mercy towards me. Great is your grace. Great is your mercy towards me. Your loving kindness towards me, your tender mercies I see day after day, forever faithful towards me, and you're always providing for me. Great is your mercy towards me. Great is your grace. Oh, great is your mercy towards me. Your loving kindness towards me. Your tender mercies I see day after day. Forever faithful towards me, and you're always providing for me. Great is your mercy towards me. Great is your
Great is your mercy. We've reached the offertory period of our worship service this morning and experience. We'd like to thank our student organizations as well as our chapel assistants for serving as greeters and ushers as we enter in the sanctuary this morning. Can we give God thanks for these students who are serving in the chapel? Many of them had calls to chapels this morning, and we thank them for extending their time and service. We now welcome the Rankin Memorial Chapel Choir, who will lead us in the selection "I Will Sing Praises" by alum Richard Smallwood, and they're under the direction of Dr. Eric O'Poole.
I don't have to worry, I won't be
moment for us here at the chapel. We're going to take some time to remember Congressman Elijah Cummings. For the past 20-something years, he has spoken from this pulpit, and this was to be his Sunday. He recalled often how we were the first to invite him back to Howard University. And that's when he was in the State House, and he spoke for us, and he's been coming ever since. And I've shared so often with our students, particularly after the outcry and celebration of his life, and I reminded the students how special they were to be with him every year in an intimate kind of way. And I often ask them to ask themselves the question, why me? Why were you allowed to experience Elijah Cummings in such a powerful way? And so this morning we are going to take a moment to celebrate his life. There will be many remembrances throughout the year for Congressman Cummings, but we want to share with you some reflective moments of Congressman Elijah Cummings. We will begin our celebration with students who will share quotes and remembrances of Elijah.
Good morning, Chapel family. My name is Jennifer Nadozi. I am a junior maternal and child health education major, Spanish and chemistry double minor from Atlanta, Georgia, and this is a quote by Elijah Cummings. It was to carry the American democratic journey beyond these failings that Black citizens and civil rights workers risked unemployment, violence, and death.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tamilo Lua Adelawa. I'm a sophomore biology major, chemistry minor from Union, New Jersey, and I serve as the secretary of the the College of Arts and Sciences. A quote by Elijah Cummings: "You must have confidence in your competence."
Hello, my name is Clary Kesey. I am a senior biology major, chemistry minor from Dallas, Texas. I serve as a site coordinator for Howard University Alternative Spring Break. A quote by Elijah Cummings: "Our children are the living messages we send to a future we will ever see. Will we rob them of their destiny? Will we rob them of their dreams? No, we will not do that."
My name is Kayla McQuarters. I am a junior Afro-American Studies and Political Science double major from Tulsa, Oklahoma. A quote by Elijah Cummings: "Most people who are hating on you, they are not worried about where you are. They are worried about where you're going."
My name is Jasmine Estiel Silver. I'm a junior biology major, chemistry minor from New Jersey. I serve as the community service co-chair for the chapel assistants. A quote by Elijah Cummings: "Many of these Americans who are struggling to survive are Americans of color. Their cries for assistance comfort America with a test of our moral compass as a nation."
My name is Rachel Howell. I am a junior political science major and philosophy minor from Alpharetta, Georgia, and I serve as the vice president of the College of Arts and Sciences Student Council. A quote by Elijah Cummings: "Every time something bad happens to me, I don't ask the question, why did it happen to me? The question I ask is, why did it happen for me?"
My name is Paige Hodges. I'm a senior biology major from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I serve as the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Alpha Chapter. A quote by Elijah Cummings: When we're dancing with the angels, the question will be asked, in 2019, what did we do to make sure we kept our democracy intact? Did we stand on the sidelines and say nothing?
My name is Nijon Washington. I'm a junior economics and political science double major from Buffalo, New York, and I serve as the president of the College of Arts and Sciences Student Council. A quote by Elijah Cummings. I realize that with African American people, what we've been blocking from being all that God meant for us to be, I don't have time to be patient.
My name is Glenn Vaughts. I'm a senior architecture major from Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm the president of the Howard University Chapel Systems. A quote by Elijah Cummings. I'm begging the American people to pay attention to what is going on, because if you want to have a democracy intact for your children and your children's children and generations yet unborn, we've got to guard this moment. This is our watch.
Some months ago, I received a phone call from Congressman Cummings, and he said to me, Dean, I've been coming to chapel for many years now, and I have a question I need to ask you. He asked me the question, but I did not feel comfortable with what I shared with him. I felt that I should have said more, much more. I told him just that, and I promised that I would try to put my thoughts in writing and share it with him. I didn't have the opportunity to fulfill that promise. And I now know the reason why he called. He knew he was nearing the end of his life's journey and was taking inventory of his life's work. We should be humbled by the fact that the experiences that he had in chapel were so important to him. Congressman Cummings' questions were always heartfelt. Dr. Carl Anderson, who was with us this morning, understands, for Elijah would often call his former vice president of student affairs, as he did when he was a student, and ask those deep questions. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but I understood his question. No, I felt his question. I felt his question like I often felt his preaching. Raw, transparent, heartfelt, touching my soul before it touched my mind. It was a question about his impact on those who had listened to him over the years. And the essence of his question could be best summarized by the poet who asked, what is the gift I bring to this world? And what is the life I should live? Howard Thurman would ask it this way: what was the fact of Elijah Cummings' life? I wish in that moment that I had the wisdom or the eloquence of a Vernon Jordan. Mr. Jordan would have said, Congressman Cummings, to try to measure your life's work, meaning, and accomplishments would be like taking a thimble and attempting to empty an ocean. It would be as if someone sought to measure the expanse of the heavens with the span of the human hand. Mr. Jordan would be right. It's impossible to totally capture his essence. His impact not only to the chapel, to Howard University, and to this nation in any one discussion. Even as we remember his powerful stories, his insights, and his quote, it isn't enough to capture who Elijah Cummings was to us. It brings to mind what Maya Angelou would say, people may not remember exactly what you did or what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel. When I was a psychologist, I was taught that Confrontation in the clinical sense is to be open and honest with what you see and what you feel. Elijah's confrontation of reality was often jarring and eloquently crude because of his refusal to make compromises with the truth. He would go to the heart of any matter. My words to Elijah on that day were not adequate, and they are not adequate even now. But if I had the chance to turn back the hands of time, I would have reminded him that he embodied what Dr. King desired for himself. One of Elijah's favorite sermons. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody he's traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a Christian, if I can bring salvation to a world once lost, if I can spread the message as the Master taught, then my living will not be in vain. Yes, Jesus, I want to be on your right or on your left side. I want to be on your right or your left side, not for any selfish reason. I want to be on your right side or your left side, not in terms of some political kingdom or ambition. But I just want to be there in love and in justice and in truth and in commitment to others so that I can make of this old world a new world. Thank you, Elijah. You did help us along the way. And indeed, your living was not in vain.
I tell people that there was no better training for me in politics than at Massachusetts Government and Howard University. It was rough up and down. It was rough. I mean, you had the hilltop. If you made one mistake, they had an editorial on your butt the next day. Your classmates, and they lived right down the hall from you, so they could knock on your door at 4 o'clock in the morning complaining about the food. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But it prepared me to take on what I am dealing with now.
Let's stand for a moment and give thanks for Congressman Elijah Cummings. You may be seated. We are indeed blessed this morning to have as our preacher our President Rankin, Frederick. We thank God for his courage and strength and his wisdom, his understanding, and his willingness to be with us this morning on this very special day. Thank you, President Frederick, for all that you do. Following a selection from the chapel choir, you will be blessed to experience our President. Pray for him as he comes to bring us a word from the Lord.
The Lord that
Let us bow our heads. God, I ask you to look over us and to have us recognize that the heaviness of our hearts as we lose loved ones is your way of pouring their love back into us. I ask you to forgive me for my inadequacy to address this congregation, but to look with favor upon my preparation. Amen. First, let me thank Dean Richardson for allowing me to, I don't even want to say fill in, but to come on the day that Honorable Elijah Cummings was supposed to speak. Just prior to his passing, when I learned of his illness, I spoke to Dean Richardson about this, and he informed me that Congressman Cummings would be speaking today, and so I offered to move my date to speak on this day, and that recognizing that it would have even more significance. Having said that, it has been a difficult year. When we look at a university that has produced such distinguished alum, many of whom we have lost, many trailblazers this year. But I think that that gives us an opportunity to reflect and to be thoughtful about what we do for those who are here. And I think this week is also probably appropriate for some of what I'm going to speak about. I know in the news over the past couple of weeks we've had several mentions about the culture war that's taken place in America. OK Boomer, especially for the younger folks in the audience, has resonated this week. Former President Obama has probably also urged that same group with his message about being woke, but yet still being involved. And so there's a lot going on, but I think an opportunity to try to bridge that gap. So the first thing I want us to do is to acknowledge the Showtime Marching Band. They do a lot during the week, they're at games on the weekend, and yet still they're here this morning. So I want to thank you for all that you do. Let's give them another round of applause. I also want to take an opportunity to acknowledge the cabinet members who are here. If you can all stand, since quite a few of you here. I appreciate all that you do. I think I saw a couple of my deans here. It's a little dark, so if the deans can stand. And today I had assisting me the chapel assistant Lauren Johnson, who's a sophomore from IT in Alexandria, Virginia. She's in the College of Nursing and Allied Health Sciences. And thank you. So I want to first start by talking a bit about the Honorable Representative Elijah Cummings. This is a man who would call me unsolicited to ask how things were going. And I would spend the first 45 seconds of that conversation quickly looking through my email to see what has happened, looking through social media to see if there's a reason for him calling. And as was usually the case, there wasn't no reason for him calling other than he was checking in to see if I needed anything, to see how things were going. He accepted every invitation that we sent him. I invited him to every commencement dinner since I've been president, and he attended. Even when he had to use a walker, he still attended. That was the level of his commitment. But I think there are a few things about his godliness that I'd like to share today. I came down to the first floor of the A building one afternoon about 3:02, and I'll tell you why I remember the time as well. And I saw Representative Cummings walking through the first floor of the A building. So needless to say, I walked over and said hi. I assumed that he was meeting someone. At that time, his daughter was attending Howard. And so I walked over to him casually to ask him what he was doing. And he said, "Oh, I just went to the cashier's office and it was closed. I came here to pay my daughter's tuition bill." And I said, "Yeah, they close at 3 o'clock. And he was like, "Oh, I wish I had realized. I wouldn't have come all the way up here." And I immediately started thinking to myself, here's this busy man with all that he has going on during his day. And yet still, as they say in Matthew 21, "Tell us therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not?" But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, "Why tempt ye me, ye hypocrites? Shew me the tribute money." And they brought unto him a penny. And he saith unto them, "Who is this image and superscription?" They say unto him, "Caesar's." Then saith he unto them, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's." And I bring that up because one of the things that he always told me about was that he was proud to pay that tuition. He felt it was important for his daughter to get an education at Howard University, but more importantly, he felt that the return on that investment was one that he was absolutely certain about. And so it was a pleasure for him to do that. Now that didn't happen once, it happened twice. I came down another time and saw him, and this time I knew exactly what he was doing. So I took him to the second floor and had him go drop his check off. And I thought to myself, this is amazing. Howard University started a tuition rebate program where you get 50% of your direct payments back at the end of your fourth year if you finish on time or early. I got a call from Congressman Cummings after his daughter graduated in July of the year after she graduated. And he said to me, "I was just calling you to let you know I just received my tuition rebate check." And he said, "I don't know too many schools in America that have the quality of education that Howard University provides and pays people to come here. So I just want you to know that I can testify in Congress, if you'd like, about the fact that the tuition rebate program does work." His willingness to engage with us, to come to chapel, to talk about the things that matter, not just in the country, but affected Howard University directly, was one that I will always remember. Whether speaking on civil rights, the importance of supporting our HBCUs, or addressing waste, fraud, and abuse in government operations, Elijah Cummings was not one to shrink from calling out wrongs when he saw them. He displayed a righteous anger that was not vindictive, petty, or personal. It squarely focused on the importance of respecting the bedrock principles of fairness, equity, and stewardship, and not being silent when they were violated. The president's attack on Congressman Cummings and his desecration of everything that Baltimore stands for was not met by a personal, petty response from Congressman Cummings, but rather Congressman Cummings, I think, instructed us as to what we should do with our righteous anger. And that is to express our love for the principles and the things that we believe in. And that always is going to win the day. In Matthew 21, Jesus displayed this righteous anger when he cleared his temple of the merchants and money changers who desecrated the temple with their worldly and commercial interests. Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. It is written, he said to them, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." And so the things that we hold virtuous to us, in the places that we hold sacred to us, we must ensure that they remain that way. And we must ensure that we love them so that we can keep them for the purposes that they are for. He was also bold. And just as Elijah Cummings' namesake in the Bible, Elijah was not afraid to speak truth to power. He called out King Ahab for allowing the worship of the idol of Baal and told him that a years-long drought would follow if the people did not repent of their wicked ways. And when we think of our times that we live in, the commercialism, the nationalism, the racism that people hide behind, the reality is that we have to call that out and ensure that we push that out. Despite persecution by both King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, Elijah remained fearless and faithful. He confronted their idolatry squarely on Mount Carmel and demanded that the people not be lukewarm, but know that it was a time for choosing. And so in 1 Kings chapter 18, so Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is God, follow him." But the people said nothing. And that scripture goes on to talk about the fact that Elijah had one bull, while Ahab and his folks had hundreds of bulls. And so Elijah said to Baal, "Why don't you get your most prized bull, cut it up, and put it on the wood? I will take my bull, cut it up, and put it on the wood, and we both shall call on our God for fire." And so, of course, looking at his one bull, Baal said, "Sure." So Baal got his prized bull and cut it up and put it on the wood. And for 3 days attempted to call fire upon the wood. And for 3 days there was no fire. Elijah then said, "Do it a third time," he ordered, and they did it a third time, and the water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench, so there was no fire. But at the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again." Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, he is God, the Lord, he is God." So it speaks to Representative Cummings' faith, that while we are attacked and while we feel persecuted, we must not turn to doing the same, but rather we must turn to our faith and our belief and be convinced that we will see a path. Representative Cummings was known for saying that our children are gifts to a future that you will never see. And if you look at 1 Kings chapter 17, it tells us, "Now Elijah the Tishbite said to Ahab, 'As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word.'" And he last visited our campus in the spring for an event with Donna Brazil. And he prophetically shared that the damage to our civic institutions and political systems would not be repaired in his lifetime. He sees you all, the Howard students of today, as the solution that this nation will need to recover from our civic sins of complacency and disengagement. And so we must take on that mantle very, very strongly, but also recognize how sacred we must do that. Elijah Cummings recently exhorted, "I'm begging the American people to pay attention to what is going on. Because if you want to have a democracy intact for your children and your children's children, and generations yet unborn, we've got to guard this moment. This is our watch. It's not for someone else to do it. It's not for some other university to step forward and produce graduates that will do it, but rather it is for us to do it." The Christian writer Max Lucado has written that grace is God's best idea. Grace isn't a nice idea. It's not a song, a lyric, or a warm, fuzzy feeling, but it's the radical life of Christ lived in you. Grace gives you the freedom to love the lovable and forgive the unforgivable, because you know how much you're loved and know how much you've been forgiven. Elijah Cummings never forgot that. He recognized the failings and the frailties of the human condition. And how often do we call people out in being woke, but we don't stop to ask, what can we be called out about? None of us are without that sin, but most importantly, none of us are without that grace. And that grace is a grace we must always remember. Because in Matthew chapter 3, it says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." Elijah Cummings did not write anyone off because of their past mistakes or current feelings, because he was sensitive to the reality that all of us have fallen, yet have been given grace we did not deserve. And I know all of us can sit here right now and just think in the past 24 hours of just a little more patience we could have had. That horn we honked on the way over here to chapel. That yell at our child who was not quite dressed yet. Both of my kids are here. I didn't do that this morning. They both are smiling. So forgiveness is important. 3 decades after integrating the pool, where he was injured and scarred for life, when Cummings was campaigning for Congress, he recalled that a man came up to him after an event and apologized. Cummings asked him why he was apologizing. "I was one of them people back in 1962 who was throwing the bottles and the rocks and the stones. And I'm sorry," he said, the man told him. You would think that Congressman Cummings would have a whole lot to say to this gentleman, and probably not a whole lot that would be repeated in public. Congressman Cummings reported that he said, "Apology accepted." No explanation, did not interrogate the man as to why he did it, but accepted his apology. That was the level of his grace. And Representative Cummings was a force of nature, a booming baritone voice of morality in these troubling times. In the rough and tumble of our factitious political discourse, he navigated years of bare-knuckle political fights of Baltimore and later in the United States Congress. And yet, as we take stock of a life well lived, I do not believe it is inaccurate to say that Elijah Cummings' life was marked throughout by love. And so I certainly encourage all of us to be mindful of this. Howard students are leading this nation and leading towards graduating so that they can continue their good works outside of these 4 walls. But it also means that they must possess certain virtues that are sorely needed in our world today. Virtues are habits of mind, heart, and behavior. They develop through deliberate practice. And when I reflected on the merits of a Howard graduate, 5 virtues come to mind. The first is empathy. The second is confidence. The third is humility. The fourth is selflessness. And the fifth, and probably the most important of all, is love. I mentioned the last as the greatest of all, as that was Jesus' admonition when engaging in a debate with teachers of the law. And we see this in 2 different areas in how Jesus interacted. But we also see it in a new generation of students and leaders that are rising. And we must recognize that it is vital to reaffirm the responsibility that comes with that Howard University education. We have never lacked intellect, academic excellence, or some of the brightest lights that have illuminated this world. Yet the Howard graduate is still distinguished by his and her love for humanity. Toni Morrison, who passed earlier this year, once told a story that when she was about 2, her parents fell behind in the rent, which was $4 a month. So the landlord set fire to their house while they were all in it. And she is quoted as saying, "It was this hysterical, out-of-the-ordinary, bizarre form of evil," she said. "If you internalized it, you'd be truly and thoroughly depressed, because that's how much your life meant. $4. For $4 a month, somebody would just burn you to a crisp. So what did you do instead was laugh at him, at the absurdity, at the monumental crudeness of it. That way, you gave yourself back to yourself in a priceless way. You distance yourself from the implications of the act. And sometimes that's what laughter does. You take it back. You take your life back and you take your integrity back. We know Toni Morrison for her use of words in so many ways. And to think that over $4 a month, someone could have snuffed out those words. Jessie Norman. Miss Norman stood up for herself from an early age. As a middle school student, she demanded to be allowed to take shop classes rather than home economics. She would say she lost that battle. As a budding young singer, she refused to let the adjudicators of the 1968 Bavarian Radio International Music Competition arbitrarily change the rules on her during the second round in what appears to have been a racially motivated move. She not only won that fight, but she would go on to win the competition. There's a lot that she has done, that she has left us with, but once again, that grace and willingness to engage is what is critical. My mentor, Dr. LaFall, passed earlier this year, and I'll tell a story that I probably have not told publicly about him. Many accolades, in my opinion, the greatest surgeon that ever lived. Could apply to only 2 medical schools in this country, Howard and Meharry. Neither admitted him. He had 1 B on his transcript and was 18 years old. But his university president called Howard University administrators and convinced them to accept him. And he would go on to graduate #1 in his class, become the first black president of the American College of Surgeons and the first black president of the American Cancer Society. The opportunity that Howard gave him, he would never forget, and would stay on the staff at Howard for in excess of 60-something years, because he always wanted to give that debt of gratitude back. One day he and I were operating on a patient, taking out her entire colon and putting her back together. And as we were doing that, I said to him, "I think the intestine is twisted." He said no in his usual hurried but calm way. "It's not twisted." He put it back together and he left the room to start another case. I lifted up the intestine and it was twisted. So I had a dilemma. None of the nurses in the room wanted to go back and get him, because as far as they were concerned, he could not be wrong. And I was also convinced that he couldn't be wrong either. So sometimes we see things and we know what they are, but because of the situation, we convince ourselves otherwise. They then decided by a straw vote, and since I was sterile, I was the only one who couldn't pull a straw, that I had to go tell him. And so I went and got him from the other room and told him what I had seen, and he came back in the room and looked in, and sure enough, he agreed that it was twisted. We took the connection down of the ileum and the rectum, the small intestine and the rectum, and we put it back together. But what was different is that he insisted that I do it myself, which I did. And for every hour, for the next 48 hours, I examined that patient to ensure that it was put back together well. I tell that story because his humility in allowing me to not just point out something that was wrong, but then to reward me by having me do it again, was a classic example of the passing of the baton that we don't recognize in the moment that it has occurred. And so when Congressman Cummings has stood here, he on several occasions was passing that baton to us. And those are the things that I think Dean Richardson repeatedly speaks of. The opportunities that we have to hear from these leaders while they are here are opportunities that we must not take for granted and that we must cherish. Now, I doubt that any of these icons would be considered weak. I suspect all would be considered woke in these times. And yet, through the ugliest parts of life that these trailblazers experienced, they resisted the temptation to fight fire with fire. When the city and people of Baltimore were targeted by negative tweets, you will note that Honorable Elijah Cummings responded forcefully and pointedly about what he loved about his city. He walked amongst the people with them, highlighting what was great about it, encouraging them not to burn their own city down, but making sure that everyone recognized that they needed help. So many of our elders have certainly passed this year, and we certainly are looking at the opportunity to pass that baton. And there are sobering things at stake: health disparities, home ownership rates, mass incarceration over policing, automation and the disruption it portends, the crisis of black men, voter ID laws, disenfranchisement. There's a lot facing us. And as daunting as these challenges may seem, I remain optimistic for our future because of you, the students of Howard University on this campus. A generation that is squarely focused on issues of equality and justice, and more aware of the circumstances of others living under the weight of oppression and deprivation. You heard in one of the calls for chapel about alternative spring break. Our students will leave this campus and go elsewhere to administer to others rather than allow themselves to be fulfilled on a sunny beach somewhere. And that says a lot about their intent, about their love for their fellow person. As Dr. King put it, power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. So there's so much to learn from those who have come before us, the heroes and sheroes whose lives we mourn this passing year. In building upon the hard-fought gains that they achieved, it is key that we recall and ensure that we recognize that their battle was not easy. And we hear this in Ephesians 6. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Inflection points in history have come before, and I sincerely believe we are living in such a consequential time. A prior transition from one generation to the next is found in the passing of leadership from Moses to Joshua. Turn with me to the book of Joshua. And when you look at the message to the Israelites, it is clear about what that passing looks like. Joshua 1:1-6, it says, After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them. Just think of all that Moses did to get to that land that he would never touch foot on. I will give you every place where you set your foot as I promised Moses. The promise wasn't to Joshua. The promise was to Moses. Elijah Cummings' promise was not to himself. He never said that I want a better Baltimore for me. He wanted a better Baltimore for people in Baltimore today. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. And so, just as God made a promise to Joshua, he has made a promise to you, that the land that you will inherit will be better because of your preparation. Another pivot point in seeing the rise of new leaders is found in the book of 1 Samuel. And King Saul had lost the Lord's favor, and the prophet Samuel was searching for a new leader to anoint. And all the typical candidates were trotted out. And you would remember that he had several sons. Fine young men, tall, strong. But after they all passed, he said, so he asked Jesse, are these all the sons you have? And he said, sheepishly, they are still the youngest. Jesse answered, he is tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives. So he sent for him and had him brought in, and he was a glowing young man. The Lord then said, "Rise and anoint him, because this is the one, the youngest among us. The one who was out with the sheep is the one that God felt Samuel should pick to lead." And so it is that our students must and will lead. So as we think of all of those who are hardest to love, it is instructive to remember that there is no precondition to God's love. He does not fathom the conditional "I'll love him or her when" type of love favored by humankind. If that were the case, we would all be lost and without hope. Because in Romans chapter 5 it says, "You see, at just the right time when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly." Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, he died for us. So our beloved university and the leaders trained in this sacred place must also maintain that love for humanity that reminds us that a Howard education comes with a responsibility to uplift those marginalized by that same status quo. The myriad disparities that exist surely impact Black Americans disproportionately, but we must maintain a heart for those Black, brown, white, and every other part of God's creation who have been cast aside by a worldly system that devalues them and ignores the reality that we are all made in his image. And the words of Matthew chapter 5 remind us that God's will is that we would extend the same care and concern even when it is not reciprocated. Perhaps especially when our love is met with hate. As Dr. King put it, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. At a time when our nation is polarized as ever, and all of us, even on our campus, find it easier to isolate ourselves among those who share our particular worldview, it's worth remembering what God is looking for. Those who will upend the kingdom of the world, not with harsher tweets or takedowns, but with the radical and determined strength to love. The revolutionary power of love is an indispensable part of God's kingdom. And for the people of faith and good will form other traditions. The Howard University education is incomplete without imbuing a sense of love for others and a responsibility to use the training you achieve here for the benefit of the world sorely in need of your talents. So in the face of racism, Dr. LaSalle LaFour loved. In the face of sexism, Jesse Norman and Toni Morrison loved. In the face of political acrimony, Elijah Cummings loved. He loved Maya, he loved his family, he loved the people of Baltimore, he loved our nation. And just as Christ loved us, I encourage you to aim for the higher, harder standard today. And as Paul writes to the Corinthians, probably my favorite phrase in the Bible, "And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love." So my exhortation to you, our future leaders, is to advocate for change, disrupt the status quo, address inequities and disparities, fight injustice at every turn, but do not forget along the way to love. May God bless Howard University, the memory of the Honorable Elijah Cummings, and all of you today. Amen.
said to the one who stood at the gate, "Give me a light that I may go out into the darkness and into the unknown." And she replied to me, "Go out into the darkness. Go out into the unknown. But put your hand in the hand of God. And God shall be for you better than light and much safer than a known way." May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace, both now and forever.